I was like, girl, you look so fine. I was like, who? Who you talking to? You talking to me?
Come on, pick up.
This James Harden, what it is?
James, it's Dame. I'm stuck in Portland and need your help. How do you get traded wherever you want all the time?
It's easy. You just eat a ton of food and be a lazy fat ass and lower your trade value.
That's genius. But isn't that bad for you?
Terrible.
Please, just let me go. I've done everything for you. Okay, I'll read it. In exchange for Dame, we want multiple first-round picks and a star talent. If our demands are not met, then we will kill Dame's career. Jimmy, please, you gotta get me out of here. What are we going to do, Pat?
What's up, YouTuberverse? It's RB back again for another one. Yes, I did cut the locks off. I've been growing them bad boys for 6 years. And just felt like it was time for a fresh start, you know what I mean? But I didn't come here to talk about my hair. I want to talk about these ESPN layoffs. So let's get right into it. Nuance Machine, episode 39. Let's kick it. All right, before we get started, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also, please check out my shop, brizzysprints.com, where you can find all original designs printed on high-quality tees, tank tops, sweatshirts, and hoodies. All designs are done by yours truly, and without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so ESPN just recently laid off a bunch of people, both behind the scenes and on the air. A lot of these people are very well-known talents like Neil Everett, Susie Kolbler, Matt Hasselbeck, Todd McShay, Jeff Van Gundy, Jalen Rose, Max Kellerman, Keyshawn Johnson, Steve Young, LaFonso Ellis, and David Pollack, as well as many others who are not as well known. And like I said, some behind the scenes folks as well. So now, don't forget, ESPN is a part of ABC, which is a part of Disney, because, you know, all major media is actually owned by like a few corporations. But I digress. That's not the point. Anyway, what you're seeing is a result of a perfect storm.
Linda, over.
Really? Get out of there! Come about! Let it carry you out of there! What the hell are you doing?
Hang on!
So first, we have the pandemic. When COVID was at its height, Disney was closed. ESPN was still up and running, obviously, but there were no sports to be watched up until the NBA bubble started. The Last Dance was literally the only thing on TV sports-wise at that time.
It became personal with me.
So you have Disney losing money left and right from its parks being closed and from its networks having no events to cover. Eventually, the pandemic slows, things start to open back up, and Disney tries to push through, and then you have this fight with the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, about this Don't Say Gay bill. Now, if you don't know about that, look it up. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot retractable stick right now. But Disney did try to stay silent on this. They didn't say anything. And of course, they were met with a bunch of pressure from social justice warriors on the left, doing protests and things because they were being silent on this. And this really forced Disney's political hand, really, because it turns out they agreed with those social justice warriors on the left, and they come out and make a statement against the Don't Say Gay bill. Now, the moment this happens, Ron DeSantis places Disney directly into his crosshairs, and this goes from just a little political disagreement to an all-out political brawl. So now this political brawl brings extra eyes onto the situation, and it creates sides. You get red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat, et cetera, bullshit. And now suddenly the happiest, most magical place on earth is now one of the most polarizing places in the country. And by default, that includes ESPN. So while Disney is trying to recover from the pandemic, they're faced with an enemy that has the power to cost Disney even more money through lawsuits, revoking its special privileges it's had with the state of Florida for over 50 years. Those special privileges give Disney pretty much complete control over its 39-mile district just outside of Orlando. And look, say what you want about the extreme right and the extreme left. The one thing that they are definitely good at, that I wish everyone else would be good at, is voting with their wallet. You know, don't get me wrong, the extremes on both sides are pretty nuts. But one thing they do, and they do very well, is vote with their wallet. And honestly, that's the best way to affect change in this country. I wish more people realize that. But anyway, I digress. So Disney is put in this position where it has to choose between being boycotted and harassed from social justice warriors on the left or religious zealots and extreme right wingers. And like, look, that really sucks actually, but Disney is one of the largest corporations on earth, so I'm not going to act like I feel bad for them. I don't. They can handle it. But anyway, the point is that Disney's bottom line has taken multiple hits over the past 3 years or so. And Business Management 101 says the best way to reduce costs is to cut labor. And the most expensive labor ESPN has is its on-air talent. And a lot of people were let go that have been with ESPN forever. I mean, dude, I grew up with Neil Everett. My teens and early 20s, Neil Everett was a part of all that. Max Kellerman's one of the reasons why I even started the Nuance machine. Just because I liked how in-depth he went into the facts that informed his opinion. You know what I'm saying? Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, and Mike Breen are a staple when it comes to calling NBA games on ESPN. But Jeff Van Gundy's gone now. So, like, these are some major layoffs. Malika is still there. But Stephen A. has recently suggested that even he might not be safe.
Let's deal with reality. This ain't the end. More is coming. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I could be next.
I know some people might be thinking, there's no way, man. Stephen A. is just talking to get ratings up. And yeah, that makes sense. But I don't know if that's actually the case. ESPN did just acquire the Pat McAfee show. And Stephen A. Smith actually has his own podcast, the Stephen A. Smith Show, which I have become, honestly, pretty fond of. I like the Stephen A. Smith Show a lot. Why am I fond of his show? Well, first off, Stephen A. owns it. Like, it's not a part of some huge corporation or anything like that. It's owned by Stephen A. Smith. And because it's owned by Stephen A., he is able to be real and raw. And I like getting his real and raw opinions when they're not filtered through, the ESPN Disney machine. Stephen A. can say some things on his podcast that he just can't say on First Take or NBA Countdown. His podcast has only been around for a few months, but it's growing like a damn weed, man. And it's growing like that because Stephen A. isn't afraid to say things, like Biden's too old.
There does come a point in time where there are certain jobs you don't need. It's not that you don't need to be working. It's not that you don't need to be living your life. It's not that you don't need to be living a very vibrant lifestyle or anything like that. But there are responsibilities that are far, far, far more extensive than, let's say, the typical 9 to 5 that somebody in their 80s may not need to be doing. I think the presidency is one of them. I do.
Or we need to do something about gun violence right now. Or when it comes to Black Lives Matters, Black folks need to be just as vocal about Black on Black violence as they are about police brutality.
Yet somehow, some way, when it comes to the murders of Black people that occur at the hands of Black people, the level of energy and passion seems to be absent compared to what we would be like when someone outside the Black community does it to us.
Stephen A. also has no problem going on political shows like Tucker Carlson, or when Tucker Carlson existed on Fox, or Chris Cuomo show. Like, these are political shows. He's not afraid to go on those shows and give his political opinions. And I know it's hard to picture ESPN without Stephen A., and he is essentially the face of that network right now, but that doesn't mean anything. Tucker Carlson was the face of Fox, fired. Don Lemon was the face of CNN, fired. So we'll see what happens with Stephen A., but I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to cut ties, just because Stephen A. Smith has become very political over, especially since he started his podcast. And Pat McAfee doesn't talk politics nearly as often or as aggressively as Stephen A. does. You can see why ESPN would be a little hesitant to stay with someone who's getting more and more and more politicized on other channels outside of their network. Because of the whole thing with, with DeSantis and the state of Florida, I feel like ESPN wants to shy away from politics as much as humanly possible. And so the more political Stephen A gets on his show, excuse me, the more political Stephen A gets on his podcast, I think the more likely it is that he and ESPN cut ties. And honestly, I think Stephen A. Smith will be okay with that. He's expressed having been interested in doing a lot of different things. He's even said that he wants to do late night TV. So we'll see what happens with all that. But I'm telling you right now, if Stephen A. Smith continues to push the envelope on, with politics on his show, I think that that's going to ultimately spell his demise at ESPN. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, that's going to be all for this one, guys. I will see you on the next one.
Can't wait.
Love you guys. Peace.
Dark side, light this bitch up.